All right, so here's another Unit 4 video for us here. So this is essentially the first the first topic of factoring. So basically factoring by a GCF and factoring by grouping. Let's just kind of go ahead here. So I'll leave it on here for right now. Factoring, again, what is factoring? It's essentially just breaking down a polynomial as a product. So basically it's something times something to get us a polynomial. So I'm not going to go over this greatest common factor, like what is shared. Again, I'm just going to kind of go over it on the next slide here. So again, anytime that we're dealing with a GCF of a polynomial, oh, went too far. GCF of a polynomial, we essentially want to, first off, look at come on. Need to put the pen up, sorry. There we go. So need to look at our coefficients. So basically 56, 16, negative 56, and 24. So look at your coefficients first. We need to find the biggest number that divides all of these coefficients right here, okay? Now, if you can see this, this is great. If you can see it, that's awesome. One way that I always like to just kind of tell people is, hey, find the smallest coefficient here, which is 16, and just write out all the factors. Go 1, 16, 2 and 8, and then 4 and 4, and then that's basically it. And then from there, from this list right here, we essentially find the biggest number in here that can divide all of these numbers. And if you look, 16 does not divide 24, so we can't do that. So the biggest number it looks like is 8. So we can take an 8 out. And if we take an 8 out, what are we left with inside? Well, 56, we just basically divide all of these numbers by 8. And I'm going to write my leftovers, I call them leftovers, kind of down in the parentheses here. So 56 divided by 8, that's just 7. 16 divided by 8, that's 2. It's also a plus sign, so I'm going to write plus 2. Minus 58 divided by 8, which is just a negative 7, so I'm going to write minus 7. And then plus 24 divided by 8, which is a plus 3. Okay, 24 divided by 8 is 3. All right, so now I want to take out my variables. All right, I want to try to find the largest amount of variables that I can take out of all of these terms. Now, remember that I kind of did the whole thing where I was drawing out all the A's. Like I drew out the 7 A's here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I drew out 5. And I drew out 2, and then I drew out 1. All right, this is the first term. This is the second term. The third term, the a squared, and then the last term, the fourth. I want to find the largest amount that I can take out of all of these. And what you can see is you can only take out 1a out of all these terms. Because going back to this last term right here, I can't take out more than 1a. I can't take out 2 a's because I only have the 1a to take out. So I can only take out 1a from all of these. So I'm going to be left with just 8a. All right, I'm going to be left with an a. So what I take out, my GCF goes on the outside, and then I'm left with what I have on the inside. So I have 56a7. I took out 1a. I'm left with 6 a's. I have 5 a's here, a to the 5th. I take out 1a. I'm going to be left with a to the 4th. A squared, a to the 2nd power. I take out 1 away. I'm going to be left with 1. All right, 1a. And then if I have 1a, I take out 1. I'm going to be left with none. So I don't even have to write anything by the plus 3 there. All right. So there's that one there. Let's work on this example 5 down here. All right. I go over, again, look at my coefficients here. I got 9, and 21, and 3. I look at all my numbers that can divide those numbers. It just so happens that 3 can divide all those numbers. Because, again, if you look at the lowest number here, which is the number 3, the only two numbers that really multiply those are just 1 and 3. And I don't count decimals, so 1 and 3. So if we divide all these numbers by 3, again, I take out the 3, so I'm going to write that, dang it, I'm going to write that on the outside, and then I'm going to leave my leftovers on the inside. Negative 9 divided by 3, that's just going to give me a negative 3. Negative 21 divided by 3, that's going to give me a negative 7. And then plus 3 divided by 3, well, that's just going to be a plus 1 right there. All right. Now I go to my W's. I have 2 W's, 3 W's, and then 1 W. All right. Again, you want to find the largest amount of w's that you can take out of all of these terms here. And if you look, you can only take out one w from all these terms, because this last term right here, you can't take out more than one. You know, if you try to take out two w's, you only have one w to take out of there. So you can only take out one w. And if you take out one w from w squared in this first term, you're going to be left with just one w. You have the w3, the w cubed, the three w's right here. You're going to just be left with two w's if you take one out. All right. Go to your y's. You have one y here, two y's here, and then, oh, you have no y's in this one. So what's the largest amount I can take out of all the terms? It's no y's. I can't take out any y's out of this, all right? So if I can't take out any y's, I'm not going to write any in the front here, and I'm literally just going to take the y's that I had up here and bring them down into my parentheses. So it's going to be 3wy, and then 7w squared y squared. And then last but not least, you look at your z's, all right? z3, z4, and then z squared. Again, the largest amount of z's you can take out of every single term. It looks like I can only take out two z's from every single term, because this last term here is just the two z's. So I take out z squared. This first term here, I got three z's. I take away two. I'm going to be left with just the one z. This term right in the middle here, the z4, if I take out two z's from that, I'm going to be left with z squared. And then z squared, two z's right here. If I take out two z's over here, I'm going to be left with nothing. So I'm just left with the 1 right there. And then that right there is the final answer. That right there is the final answer. All right. All right. So let's move on to down to example 7 here. All right. Negative 36 and negative 59. Well, again, you can't really see the numbers that you can divide both 36 and negative 54 by, just pull out the smallest number. In this case, it's the negative 36. Numbers that multiply to 36. We got 1 and 36, 2 and 18. Was it 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and 5 no, and then 6 and 6, and that's basically it. 36 doesn't work. 18, well, let's take a look at 18. Does 18 divide? Will 18 divide 54? I'll have my calculator here. 54 divided by 18. Yes, it does. 54 divided by 18 is equal to 3, and then 36 divided by 18 is 2. So if I take the 18 out, so I'm gonna go with the 18. That's the number I take out. My numbers that I'm left with there are the negative 2. Again, I'm just kind of might erase those here. Just write down the 18. So I'm left with negative 2, and then negative 54 divided by 18 is just a negative 3. Look at your variables there. You got yourselves x to the 5th, y in the first, and then x to the third power, and then y to the second. Try to find the largest amount of x's that you can take out. You have yourself 5 x's and 3 x's in the second. Well, you can only take out from both of those. You can only take away 3 from both, but you can only take away 3 from this first one. So we take out 3 x's, or x to the third power. We are left with our 2 remaining x's in this first term. 5 x's, we take away 3, we're left with 2. And then in this last term, x to the third power, well, if we have 3 x's, we take away 3. We don't have any more x's, all right? Now we look at our y's. We have 1 y and then 2 y's. And we're looking at the largest amount of y's we can take out of both of those terms is just the 1 y. So you can take 1 y out of all those terms. You're just left with 18x30 times y. If you take the 1 y out of this first term right here, you're just left with no y's. And if you take the 1 y out of this last term here, the y squared, I have 2 y's. I take away 1. I'm left with just the y there, all right? And then this last one here, I'm just going to write it as prime because there are no numbers. We can't take a GCF out. There's no numbers that divide both 13 and 5. There's no x's that we can take out of both terms. There's no y's in both terms that we can take out of, so nothing I can do with that, all right? All right, so to factor by grouping here, all right? So moving on to this one. So biggest thing with factor by grouping kind of thing I wanted to point out is this is the form that you use when you have 4 terms to work with, all right? So we look at our polynomial here. That's 4 terms, all right? So factor by grouping is a potential possibility to factor this out, all right? So the way that we do it by factor by grouping, we split up our polynomial in 2 sets of parentheses, all right? And then we look for a GCF in only this first parenthesis here, and then a GCF in only this second parenthesis here. So if you look at the GCF of the first parenthesis here, the dx to the third power plus 3x squared, well, if you look there, you can only take out x squared, all right? Again, I don't worry about the GCF out of all of these. I just worry about just this first parenthesis. So x to the third power plus 3x to the squared. I can only take out the x squared. There's no numbers that divide both 1 and 3. That is, well, bigger than 1. So what I'm going to be left with is I have 3x's, x to the third power. I take away 2. I'm just left with 1. Plus the 3. I didn't do anything with that. And then I have 2x's here. I take away 2. I have no more x's, so I'm done. All right. Now I have this plus 4x and then plus 12. I don't have an x in all of my terms, so it doesn't look like I could take out an x, but I know that 4 and 12 are both divisible by 4. So I can take out a positive 4, and I usually, when I take out a positive 4, I usually write the plus 4 there. And then what I'm left with, well, 4 divided by 4 is just going to be left with 1. I don't do anything with that x. 12 divided by 4 is 3. It's still plus, and I do this. Now you know that you're on the right track, and you know that you're doing it correctly, or on the right track or doing it correctly, if you have the same thing in the parentheses in this step here, all right? If you have something different in the parentheses, in each parentheses, you know that something is off and you should not continue, all right? But we see that we have both things in our parentheses that we want, that they're the same thing, so I can go ahead and move on. Once I get to this step, I can write 2 parentheses here, and then I combine what's on the outside, so I combine those 2 terms, the x squared and the plus 4, I combine my outside terms into 1 parentheses, and then whatever I had on the inside of the parentheses, the x plus 3, the x plus 3, I just bring one of those down into its own set of parentheses, and that is my final answer right there, okay? All right, don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm going to work out just one more. I'm just going to do example 10, again, factor by grouping. 2 sets of parentheses around both the terms there. I look for the GCF in this first set of parentheses here. I can't take out any numbers, but I can take out an x squared. I'm left with just an x. Again, 3 x's, take away 2, I'm left with just 1. Plus 2 x's, take away 2, left with none, but leave the 2. Biggest thing right here, all right? If your first term is negative, always immediately take out a negative number, all right? Always take out a negative number, all right? Always assume that if your first term is negative, it's like it is over here, even though we're not doing that one, to take out the negative number, all right? So automatically take out a negative number. And again, I don't have any x's to take out, but I can take out a 16. So I'm going to take out a negative 16. Negative 16 divided by negative 16, that's just a positive 1. That gives me just with an x. Negative 32 divided by negative 16, that leaves me with a positive 2. And look at that, I have the same thing inside my parentheses here, so I can continue on to my last step here, writing out the factors. I combine what's on the outside of my parentheses into 1 parentheses, which gives me just x squared minus 16. And then what I have on the outside, and then what I have on the inside of my parentheses, I can bring that down, the x2 plus 2, the x plus 2, into its own set of parentheses there. And then I am done there. Now, I will admit, you know, there are going to be times where you get something like this, where it's like x squared plus minus 16, and we know now that that's a difference of squares, but we probably shouldn't see any of those on the test or quiz. And if you do, then I'm not going to really take off if you don't factor further. But all right, so that is all that I have for this one here. I'm going to make the next video soon and get it up soon. Thank you.